The 1971 war between India and Pakistan that was fought in the month of December 1971, starting with Pakistan's attacks formally on Indian airfields in India's western sector on 3rd December 71, leading to eventually Pakistan's humiliating military surrender in 1971 in Dhaka, which was perhaps the biggest surrender since World War II by any military force, has had many implications for both the foreign policy of India, the military boost that India got, and most importantly, it altered the history of the South Asian subcontinent. But how did it start? It actually was in the making from sometime around March 1971, when Pakistan's army decided, at the encouragement of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, to have a strong clampdown in what was then East Pakistan and Dhaka, where the people were asking for their duly elected leader, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, to become the Prime Minister of Pakistan. But how could Pakistan have a Bengali Prime Minister? Because ever since independence and even before that, they'd always treated the Bengalis as second-class citizens. So therefore, the Pakistani heavy military clampdown in what was East Pakistan led to the burning down of the Pakistani flag in Dhaka, and eventually a strong military hand was placed on East Pakistan, leading to a massive genocide, of which photographic evidence is still available in Dhaka Club, among other places. But the Bangladeshis, then East Pakistanis, faced massive amount of terror, clampdown, rape, harassment, and a total humanitarian genocide, which the world chose to ignore, because then Pakistan was a friend of the United States, and the United States, as we know, does have considerable impact on world opinion. China sat silently back, but there was always the hope in Pakistan that China would intervene. And as India was flooded with refugees from what was East Pakistan and now Bangladesh, various chief ministers of the neighboring states of India's eastern areas got in touch with Mrs. Gandhi asking for a military response. She was cautious, both because she wasn't aware of what kind of support she would get internationally, and she was equally cautioned by India's military commanders, in particular, as we have learned, by Sam Manekshaw, who was the then Indian Army chief. So a deal was struck that India would prepare for a military operation against East Pakistan, but India needed to build grounds diplomatically to be able to do that. So Mrs. Gandhi, between April and November 1971, embarked on a tour of many important countries to try and convince them that there was a humanitarian disaster unfolding in what was from East Pakistan into eastern India. But the world was a bit reluctant to listen to India's point of view, more so because they saw India in the Soviet-Russian camp. However, many things happened. In 1971, the ping-pong diplomacy took effect, which led to Nixon's visit to China, facilitated by Pakistan. So now China and the United States were both in Pakistan's side. Russia and India also entered into a 20-year friendship treaty, and that was a great boost for India. But most importantly, India needed to wait for the right time to do the right thing. The monsoons had to subside, crops that were harvested had to go to various parts of India, and then only the rail lines would be free, the roads would be free, and the riverine terrain would be suitable for military operations. 23rd, 24th November, there was build-up on either side, and just a few days after that, full-fledged military operations began to unfold. But war was only formally declared when Pakistani Air Force bombed 6 Indian airfields on India's western front, airfields like Pathankot, Agra, Srinagar, elsewhere. And India, therefore, decided to give it the response. Now, Pakistan's military strategy was built on the fact that Pakistan would put in so many troops on the Indo-Pak front, which is now what we call the Indo-Pak front, and that was India's western sector then, that India would not have resources enough to divert troops for doing much damage in East Pakistan. But India's planners, in particular, credit must be given to 3 or 4 officers. One was General Inder Gill, who was Director Military Operations, General Jack Jacob, who was Chief of Staff, Eastern Command, and General Sagat Singh, who some argue, since independence, was probably the most effective military commander that India has produced. But collectively, they put together a response which required India to get forces enough to move and head towards Dhaka, the capital of East Pakistan. The orders to the military from the political dispensation were just to clear up areas around Khulna and Chittagong so that some refugees could be sent back and the flag of independent Bangladesh could be hoisted there, something like Pakistan was doing with us since 47 in the POK area. But the operations unfolded in a manner that it took everybody from Mrs. Gandhi downwards by surprise, because the Indian troops moved in rapidly towards Dhaka and not get bogged down in just battles in major townships where Pakistan had built up a massive fortification, places like Hilli, Jessore, Khulna, Sylhet, and so many others. And many Indian military commanders were then at their best, because this was going to be India's finest military hour. And a combined effort by the Army and the Navy and the Air Force led to the fall of Dhaka. The Air Force actually bombed Pakistan's Air Force into smithereens. And the Indian Army was moving rapidly, bypassing opposition, heading for Dhaka. And this is something that Pakistan's military commanders never anticipated. They wanted to hold on to the entire territory of what was East Pakistan. But the Indian Army was moving in pincer moves. The Germans called this in World War II the Blitzkrieg, which means moving rapidly. And they bypassed oppositions. They came across one major delaying point. That was the Meghna River. And the Meghna River at some points is up to 8 miles wide. But the Indian Army carried out spectacular operations of 3 types. One was, it carried out bridging operations across the Meghna through the Corps of Engineers, which got tanks and other vehicles to move towards Dhaka. It carried out a parachute regiment drop, which is 2 paras that was dropped at a place called Tangail near Dhaka, famous for its saris. And it also did a heliborne operation from Sylhet onwards, which General Sagat launched. So Pakistan's commanders in Dhaka were initially in a state of delusion that a UN call for ceasefire would stall the Indian operations and send Indian troops right back. Mrs. Gandhi and her government actually, to their credit, didn't interfere with the military operations, so they really let commanders be. And Sam Manekshaw, Air Chief Marshal P.C. Lal and Admiral Nanda were focusing on operations on both sides, that is East Pakistan and West Pakistan. Now, Sam Manekshaw himself, though he's given a lot of credit for the victory in Bangladesh, actually was not entirely focused on Bangladesh for 2 reasons. One is that in the 65 war, he was Eastern Army commander and nothing really happened on the East Pakistan front. And much of the credit and action took place on the Western Front under General Harbaksh, who was about his same seniority, and there's another story about their seniority. But Sam Manekshaw was focusing on keeping Pakistan's military forces bogged down on the Western Front, thinking that India is going to do a breakthrough operation somewhere. And major battles were fought on the Western Front. The more famous ones are Jarpal Basantar, where India put its armor into Pakistani territory. But more importantly, the history that was in the making was on East Pakistan, Bangladesh front. And it was here that the military audacity of our commanders led to the shock effect on the Pakistani armed forces, which was never anticipated by Pakistan. And they were able to achieve this, not by drawing forces from our Western Front, but actually thinning down our forces on the China front along the McMahon Line, Arunachal Pradesh, that was then NIFA, and drawing, a brigade normally has 3 battalions. So you keep 2 battalions up on the Chinese front and you draw one. So they created sufficient forces to push towards Bangladesh and its liberation. Now the Pakistan army had a problem on many fronts. A, they were cut off for resources by the Indian Navy, which had surrounded the coastline of East Pakistan. They were getting hammered in the air by the Indian Air Force. And the Pakistan army had lost complete moral credibility with the local population, because there are too many accounts for me to narrate individually of their high-handed behavior, their rape, their loot, their plunder, which made them a target of the local population, which was willing to lynch them. In fact, after the surrender that took place at Dhaka, General Jacob was requested by General Niazi that kindly allow us to hold on to our weapons, otherwise we'll get skinned to death by the Pakistanis, East Pakistanis, which then became Bangladeshis. This has never happened, that in a surrender, troops are allowed to keep their weapon, but I suppose they took a considered decision on that front. But how did the surrender take place? That's another interesting story. When Pakistan was completely surrounded, 2-3 things happened. One was the Indian Air Force's air raids on Dhaka, and that time the Air Force, no Air Force really, at least in our part of the world, was using precision-guided munition. So they should just go over a target and drop a bomb. Now, accidentally, an Indian bomb landed in the center of the Dhaka Secretariat building, which was the seat of the government there. It went right through the dome there into the place where the Governor General of Bangladesh used to sit there, the Governor General of East Pakistan. And this shocked the Pakistanis, because they thought our Air Force was so accurate that, my God, they can hit anybody anytime. The other thing that happened, that the paradrop that took place of 2 paras, the airborne operation, the news came in, photographs came in, and the rumor that spread was that India had actually launched an airborne brigade. In reality, we didn't have the capacity to do that, but we launched an airborne battalion. But again, Pakistan was a bit shaken. So finally, General Jacob took the permission of Sam Manekshaw to go to Dhaka to negotiate the surrender. So he landed up. Niazi was sitting there having a grand lunch in the officers' mess with all of silver laid out, and he was having a good laugh. He said, well, tomorrow morning, the UN is going to declare an order for you to have a ceasefire and go back, so might as well have some beer and lunch with me. And Jacob said, I'm sorry, sir, I'm here on a job, and I've come to ask you for your surrender. So Niazi, in his pompous way, said, get lost. Well, Jacob said, here is the surrender document. I'm taking a walk, sir. I'll ask you twice more. And if I don't get an answer, I'll have to go back to India and order your bombing and have you completely butchered. So Jacob thought to himself, and he's told me this, General Jacob, that I thought to myself, my God, I'm here without a weapon. I just have my swagger stick and a pipe in my hand. So I took a walk and decided to have a smoke. Came back, asked him again. He says, sir, would you surrender? He says, never. Jacob said, I'll come back one more time, and then I go back to India. And Jacob said to me that I was thinking to myself, if he decides to arrest me, what do I do? So, any case, he took his chance. He said, I'm here on a job and let me complete the job. And having planned the whole operation, orchestrated it in such a smart manner, General Jacob went down the last time and told General Niazi that, General sir, this is the last time I'm asking you, would you be willing to surrender? So Niazi looked up to him. I shall not command the parade. We will surrender if we have to. So he says, that's not a problem, sir. Your adjutant or your staff officer, your ADC, somebody can command the parade. He says, that was the moment when Pakistan had lost the war. And that is the moment that many of us don't know was the culmination of many years of military planning, operations, and finally its execution that led to the humiliating surrender at Dhaka. In fact, an investigation then appointed by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, called the Hamidur Rahman Commission report, did not disclose the findings of the report as to why Pakistan blundered into the surrender. Actually, Niazi was asked after the war at the investigation by the Hamidur Rahman Commission that why did you surrender to Jacob when you had 26,400 troops in Dhaka and the Indian army had only 2,700? He looked up from the smoke of his cigarettes. He was a chain smoker. He says, Jacob bluffed me. Well, a bluff or no bluff, but people like him created history. Finally, the US had also given a very clear warning to India that they had moved their 7th Fleet with the aircraft carrier that was carrying nuclear weapons. And Nixon later wrote in his biography, he was then the president of the US, that as one of the 3 occasions in his career, he thought of using nuclear weapons. He challenged India that we will bomb you to high heavens. But by then, Dhaka had fallen. The UN did meet at 0900 hours, but it was 0900 hours in New York, which was 9 p.m. in India. By then, the damage had been done. And the Indian Navy had given a very clear response to the US aircraft carrier that if you come close to the coast, we will go with everything and go and die on your decks, but we'll blow you up. So it was a very dramatic moment. It was a very interesting operation, and from the military history point of view, we achieved a lot. It is an operation worth studying. On the Western Front, it was a stalemate, and for a variety of reasons, we decided not to push the card any further when the message had gone down to Pakistan that India had won.